Good morning. I'm Mark Hurl. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees for the Mainline Unitarian Church. Welcome to our service with our worship team, our ministerial intern, Caroline Bright, our Director of Lifespan Faith Development, Dawn Starr Sowers-Borschelt, today's worship associate, Emma Thompson. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. I was given wrong information. Oh, sorry. Emma Mellon. Our music director, Dr. Vincent Craig, and the Red Door duo, Helen Avakian and Dave Irwin. It's good to have you with us. We gather in a loving community of faith to support one another as we search for meaning and purpose, working together to bring compassion, equity, and responsible stewardship to the world we share. We are delighted you chose to be with us, whether in the main meeting room or virtually, and we hope you'll find your experience with us to be time well spent. An especially warm greeting to those of you who are visiting today. Please take this opportunity to silence your cell phones. Now, after the service, we encourage you to help yourself to coffee, tea, and we look forward to meeting you and welcoming you there. We are Unitarian Universalists. Our denomination was formed by the merger of Unitarianism, which holds that God is one and humans are not inherently sinful, and Universalism, which tells us that whatever our ultimate destiny may be, we will all share in it equally. So we believe all are inherently worthy and dignified. We affirm religious freedom and celebrate diversity. We welcome you, whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever your journey or personal circumstance. You'll also find more information about us at the welcome table in the atrium or at our website. Last-minute announcements can be found on the screen outside the main meeting room, which supplement those announcements found in your order of service. I've been asked to highlight a couple of things. One is, thank you to everyone involved for the success of the Reproductive Justice event that took place on Saturday, October 15th. Local legislatures and faith leaders congregated at MLUC yesterday to raise up reproductive justice in Pennsylvania. A big thank you to the Reproductive Justice team and Caroline Bright for hosting this important event. The second one is, be sure to sign up today if you're interested in sharing your thoughts about the future of the church with the search committee. There are a few seats left for the cottage meeting tomorrow, Monday, October 17th, from 7 to 8:30 p.m., and that's a Zoom meeting. Also this week, the Board of Trustees has its monthly meeting on Wednesday night at 7. There's also a Zoom address for that. And I'd like to introduce the president of the board, Yasara, who would like to say a few words. Yasara?
Good morning. One of the traditions of the board is to pay tribute to trustees who have cycled off. This is typically done live, and the outgoing members are honored for their servitude in person. This didn't take place this year, but this tradition should continue. Thank you to Mary Heil for helping me keep this alive. I'd like to take 45 seconds that Dr. Hurl gave me to thank Eileen Andrews. Are you here, Eileen? Rick, can you get your wife? She's up, okay, all right. All right. She's teaching Al, okay. All right. Eileen, make sure she watches this. Eileen, thank you for your service for the past 3 years. Eileen's tenure ended in June 2022 and started in 2019. Eileen's a doer. She's reliable, dependable, lives at Planned Parenthood, and is the type of person who will be the first to volunteer if something needs to be done. Thank you for stepping into the role of the interim VP for 1 year for just Michael, like Marley's is for me. That type of VP doesn't take over, they just hold a space for the next person to take over. Thank you, Arlene, for working on projects and initiatives that a lot of times simply got cut, for helping me anytime I send out and still send out an SOS. That sums up in a lot of ways Eileen's passion for getting things done. It's not about recognition or long rambling tributes she's not here to get. Just do it, and do it in as few words as possible. That's Eileen's motto. One downside of not having Eileen help out with her tribute this year, as a professional editor, is that it's one long run-on sentence with semicolon abuse everywhere and quotation marks for no reason. Sorry, Eileen, I did my best. Thank you, Eileen, for your service on the board. Please join me in thanking Eileen, who's upstairs. Thank you, Dr. Hurl. Back to you.
Thank you. And I guess that's my role of Master of Ceremonies here. Now I'm going to introduce the Minister's Minute. Caroline.
Except today it's an intern minute, and I'm not going to take it except to say how appropriate that Eileen was out serving at OWL instead of here to receive her accolade. That's so fitting, so fitting. So today, instead of a minister's minute, because I'm not yet a minister, you're all helping me get there, we are going to hear from the auction committee. And I have it on good authority that this is exciting. So.
Hi, I'm Joanne Rose.
And I'm Ron Rose.
Ron, why are you all dressed up?
Well, I got dressed up because you got dressed up.
Well, we both got dressed up to tell you about the 50th anniversary of our annual auction. There's all that history.
And fundraising.
And fun. Remember?
Oh, I got a lot of memories. One is of Steve Banks back in the 80s. He was the auctioneer. And whenever he'd sell something, he'd take his plunger and he goes, oh, like that.
That's a fun memory. You should do that again.
Oh, I can't. He got it copyrighted.
Oh. There are more golden memories. I think of gold as something of value and precious. In autumn, we can have sunny golden days and sunflowers and sunshine gold on sugar maple leaves. There are golden moments and the golden years. There is some gold in living a long while. And there are the golden girls. For the auction, it means a lot of time and effort and love and service put forth. And golden girl, woman, Sally Fritzen, leads our team.
That's right, Joanne. You know, and after 2 years, we are now going to get back together and have the live auction in person. You know, it was really hard to auction to a Zoom camera without anyone else in the room. But now everyone can come back, and it's more important for the bidders to be here and enjoy the fun and enjoy being with each other. So everyone, please come on Saturday night, November 12th at 6 p.m. Put that on your calendar.
And as for all those 50 years, we will also have the silent auction, which is online for a full week and will start on Saturday, November the 5th, before the live in-person auction. Please think of what you will donate. Be as imaginative as you want, then go to the church's website under the word community to find the auction link and the donation form. While you're there, buy a bid ticket. That's how you register. And when you show up that night of the live auction, you'll get a chocolate candy bar and a chance at the gold ticket. If you have any questions, contact us or anyone else on the auction team.
And finally, you know, every year we always ask everybody to dress to the theme of the auction. But how do you dress to a golden jubilee? How do you dress for that? Well, you can get dressed up, or come as you are, or you might have a gold cape laying around from your Elvis groupie days, or maybe a gold lame prom dress. Or you can just dress up with a lot of blink.
Blink? No, honey, it's bling. Bling.
Bling. Oh, I thought it was blink. Okay, bling. So wear as much bling as you want and dress up like Allen Iverson or Elton John. But just join us, come to the auction, and enjoy yourself.
And together, we'll celebrate and make it a great success.
That was awesome. I think we should all bring our own plungers. Okay, now, if you would join me in reciting our mission. Together, we transform lives through love, service, and our welcoming faith. Thank you.
I'd like to invite Pat, Pam, and Judy to come up to light our chalice. You're over here with me. It is now when we are called as witnesses of the world to mend it, to change its course, to restore it. It is now when we are called to act on our values, not to hide, not to fear, but to be bold and loud. It is now that we are called to continue our fight for justice, to organize, to speak up. It is now. Let us gather. Let us give each other courage. Let us worship.
Y ahora la misma poema en español. Es ahora que estamos llamados a ser testigos del mundo, a enmendarlo, a cambiar su curso, a restaurarlo. Es ahora que somos llamados a vivir nuestros valores, a no escondernos, a no temer sino ser audaces y hacer ruido. Es ahora que somos llamados a continuar nuestra lucha por la justicia, a organizarlos, a levantar las voces. Es ahora, reunámonos, démonos valor unos a otros. Celebramos.
can be one. Many stones can form an arch, singly none, and by union what we will can be accomplished still. Drops of water turn a mill, singly none, singly none, singly none, singly none, singly none, singly none.
Welcome to this place of possibility. With words from Marianne Hatchin-Cotter. Welcome to this place of possibility. This is love's hearth, the home of hope, a refuge for minds in search of truth, unfolding ever beautiful, ever strange. Here, compassion is our shelter, freedom our protection from the storms of bigotry and hate. In this abode, may we find comfort and courage. Here, may our sight become vision to see the unseen, to glimpse the good that is yet to be. And here, I remind you that a loud church is a healthy church, and all voices are welcome. And now, for a special treat, I hope you will rise and join us for our opening hymn, Step by Step.
Once upon a time, a very long time ago, the Buddha was born as a little parrot in the jungle, where she lived happily. Where she lived happily with her friends, the other animals. But one day, there was a terrible storm, and there was a lightning strike, and a fire started. And it spread quickly, and all the animals ran around in panic, and the little parrot flew up into the air to get away. But when she looked back down, she could see that the animals were trapped, many of them. She could get to the river, to safety, to water, but many of the animals were surrounded by fire. And she couldn't do it. She couldn't just fly away and leave her friends there. So she had an idea. It was a brave idea, but it was a dangerous idea. She flew down to the river, and she got her feathers all wet, and she scooped up some water in her beak, and she flew back over the fire. And she shook her feathers to drop the droplets of water off, and she opened her beak, and this little tiny amount of water fell out down into the flames. And a few flames went out, but it was not anywhere near enough water to really put out the fire. And so she went back and she did it again. And she went back and she did it again.
And up in the clouds, up in the heavens, the devas were watching, who were kind of gods. And they laughed. They said, "What is that little parrot doing? That's ridiculous. That'll never work." But she kept going, back and forth and back and forth. And one of the devas didn't laugh. One of the devas was impressed. He thought, "This is a brave little parrot." So he turned himself into a beautiful golden hawk, and he flew down to where she was shaking her feathers to let the water drip on the fire. And he said, "Brave little parrot, you are very foolish. You should fly away. You should save yourself. What you're doing is never going to work." And she turned and she looked at him and she said, "I don't need your advice. I don't need you to tell me what to do. I'm doing the best I can, and it's really hard work. I need your help." And her words changed the deva's heart. And his feelings of sadness and admiration overflowed from his eyes as golden tears. And so many of them overflowed that they fell on the fire, and the fire went out. And where his tears fell on the ground, trees and bushes and plants started to sprout up much faster than they ever would after a real fire, after a fire was put out with water. And the forest was beautiful and green again, and the brave little parrot and all of her friends were safe. I'd like to invite children and youth to their classes now. I'll be in the atrium. If you are wondering where you belong, I will help you figure it out. But many of you know where you're going. Thank you.
Our offering outreach recipient this week is Chenoa Manor, and joining us from Chenoa is Christiane Moore. She has volunteered there for the past 6 years. As a steward at Chenoa, she focuses on marketing, social media, and fundraising, as well as assisting with educational programs. Christiane is also an artist and a textile designer. And she is the illustrator and photographer for Chenoa's first children's book, A Wabi Sabi World, which journeys through an animal sanctuary where perfection is joyously discovered in imperfection. Welcome, Christiane. Please come up and tell us about Chenoa.
Like she said, my name is Christiane, and I've been volunteering with Chenoa for a while now. I'll do you a little introduction about Chenoa, but it's hard for me to really explain it in a way that shows just how magical of a place and an organization it is. But I'll try my best to introduce it well. So a little bit of background. For more than 15 years, Chenoa has served our community as an animal sanctuary and learning center. We're a 100% volunteer-run organization, and we're both a 501c3 as well as an accredited member of the American Sanctuary Association. Above all, it's our mission to respect and nurture the interconnectedness of life through humane animal care and education. It's our hope that we're not only able to offer a permanent safe space for animals in need, but that our programming helps to instill a sense of compassion and respect towards the earth and those who share it, including one another. Our grounds are peaceful and welcoming, and countless visitors have talked about the quiet serenity and playful joy that just permeates the space. If you have a chance, I definitely recommend looking at our website to see some of our calendar of upcoming events. Most of our offerings this season have passed. I think we have a couple more things slated for next month. But we'll be adding more offerings for next year, and we have some really fun events, workshops, and different offerings. As an animal sanctuary, Chenoa provides a permanent, safe living environment for unwanted and neglected animals. We have 25 acres that are home to about 250 farm and exotic animals that sort of range the gamut between horses, goats, geese, chickens, ducks, sheep, tortoises, rabbits, parrots, and more. I always like to remind people that making sure an animal has a chance at a full, happy life goes beyond just ending the suffering. I think we hear a lot about animal rescue groups who go in and take animals out of tough situations. But at Chenoa, we're really caring for animals long term. When an animal finds their way to Chenoa, they're given a forever home and a space to really be themselves. I've been able to see abused animals really transform, going from being scared and shy to nosy and outgoing. And just seeing an animal's ability to forgive people is really amazing and inspiring. But at the same time, we also make space for animals that will always have a quirky personality and will never get along with people, which is something that differentiates us from a lot of organizations that are really looking for animals to mold themselves and fit into what humans want from an animal companion. In addition to caring for animals, caring for humans is also very important to us as an organization. We're also an educational center, and we work with local youth to nurture and empower. Through service days, workshops, and internships, we provide an open environment where teens can feel safe and thrive and tap into their inherent connection with the natural world. We really believe that learning about and interacting with animals and plants can help young people better understand themselves and others. And it really encourages compassion and respect, as well as communication and leadership skills, self-confidence, and self-acceptance. To sum it all up, I just want to read a quick quote from a young volunteer named Ben that I think is really poignant and a good way to end just the little introduction about Chenoa. One of the most powerful forces in the world is hope. It puts everything into motion. Every time I leave Chenoa Manor, I leave with a sense of hope, and I see it in the other people who are there as well. If everybody has a little bit of hope in them, good things will happen and positive change will come. Thank you so much for listening and supporting us this month.
Thank you. Your belief in the rights of the animals comes through so clearly, and Chenoa sounds like a place of peace for both species. The usher will come forward for your gifts. If you're watching online, you can hit donate or follow the directions on the screen. Thank you. In Candles of Community, we celebrate together and we share our concerns together. Today, Leslie and John Bass are here to light a candle for Nancy, Diane, Amy. Nancy was their friend and neighbor for over 40 years. She died on October 12th and is survived by her husband, Richard, and adult children, Matthew and Elizabeth, and grandchildren. For Nancy and for those who mourn her, we hold you in our hearts. Thank you. Michael Cohen asks that we share the joy of Jack and Terry Arney as they celebrate their 50th wedding anniversary. Jack and Terry, we hold you in our hearts. We light many candles of gratitude for the many, many volunteers who made raising up reproductive justice not just possible, but a powerful and empowering event yesterday. An action committee of about a dozen drew in support from many more folks to greet guests, get sign-ins, help with parking, publicize externally, create great signage and decor, bring lots of tempting food, clean up, share literature, sell t-shirts, set up sound and tech, take photos, lots of candles to say thank you, and in particular to Judy Wilson, Pat Hennessy, and Pam Costi, who steered the ship. We applaud you and we hold you in our hearts. Pat Hennessy asks that we remember those teens who have experienced unplanned pregnancies that have brought suffering, confusion, and sometimes desperation to them and their families. She asks that we pray for all women who have difficulty accessing women's health care services. For these teens and women, we hold you in our hearts. And we light a candle to remember all who are engaged and will become engaged in every aspect of the work of reproductive justice, that their hearts may remain fresh and strong. We hold you in our hearts. Oh, one more. One final candle to celebrate Rich Fritzen, whose birthday was yesterday. The man who is everywhere, knows almost everything, and always has time to be kind. Rich, we hold you in our hearts. Before I do the reading, Emma Thompson's name showed up somewhere in the publicity for today, much to my delight. She's one of my favorites. And I want to take the opportunity, since we are talking about embodiment, which is what reproductive justice is about, I want to take the opportunity to highly recommend her latest film, Good Luck to You, Leo Grand. Anybody with a body should see this movie. Okay. That's Good Luck to You, Leo Grand. Our reading today is based on From Out of Narrow Place, Prayer for a Pro-Choice Rally. You'll see that it shifts between narrowness and spaciousness, which is the necessary geography of all activism. I thank Reverend Caroline for this reading. From out of the narrow place, we called to God, and God answered us from a God-filled, expansive space. From out of the narrow place, from legally imposed constraints, from a crushing of autonomy, from a space of oppression, from choking constriction. From out of the narrow place, we cry out in pain at this lurch backwards, in fear for the health of so many women, in concern for people on the margins becoming even more marginalized, in grief about the increase in poverty and lives altered because of the will of others, in worry for what may be threatened next, in rage at the overreach, at the very gall. From out of the narrow place, we scream out to God. My God, our God, is debased, discounted, dismissed in this imposition of someone else's narrow religious values on 51% of our nation's population. Our God is erased, and so is our freedom to believe in our God and to act in accordance with our beliefs. Our God is a God of liberation, not constriction, a God of strength, not subordination. Our God is a God of loving kindness, not rigidity, a God of covenantal relationship, not authoritarianism. Our God is a living process, sustaining creation. Our God is in the faces of family and friends. Our God is in the comfort we receive when we are heartbroken or hurt. Our God is in the goodness we bring into the world. From out of the narrow place we called to God, and God answered us from a God-filled, expansive space. Let us bless all those seeking to make the best and most responsible choices for themselves and their families. Let us honor the healthcare practitioners who risk their lives to help people with unplanned, unwanted, unsustainable pregnancies. Let us strengthen the networks growing to support women's autonomy in these dangerous times. Let us bring all our resources, all our agency to those most in need, most affected, most at risk. Let us be buoyed by the solidarity we experience through coalition work and be called to come through as good allies. Let us use our voices and our votes to cry out as loud as we can. Let us use our bodies to match our cries with effective action, and in so doing, let us together create expansive, God-filled spaces, spaces of safety, of autonomy, of access, spaces of opportunity, of solidarity, and freedom. May we sanctify and protect these spaces in care and coalition and community. Let it be so. And now for a very brief reflection. I invite us to settle into ourselves, into the expansive, God-filled space of our own beings. I invite us to slip out of narrowing thought, worry, frustration, and anger, and soften into the God expansiveness that fills and surrounds us. Let go. Rest in this enlivening, God-filled space where all things become possible.
If you feel like it, you're welcome to join us in singing along in the chorus. Just simply, we must for us. The soul of our nation is counting on us when it comes to salvation and a people we trust. As Abe Lincoln put it on that Gettysburg Day,
democracy needs you and me. Precious land of liberty, we must, for us, show up for us. Our democracy needs you and me. We are making history for the fathers, mothers, sisters, brothers, sons,
Now I just want them to follow me around all the time. I would like to always be played in by the Red Door Duo. Thank you so much. In practically every public school in America, the day starts with some kind of routine that involves reciting the words, "I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, with liberty and justice for all." As a kid, I know I didn't think much about those words beyond getting them right when I first learned them. In high school, I was interested to learn that the under God part had been added in the 1950s as part of the McCarthy-era fear of communism. Just about every American school kid learns that our flag represents a republic with liberty and justice for all. And just about every thinking adult knows that promise isn't always fulfilled. In fact, it never has been, not for all. For some, definitely. For many, sure. But for all, not yet. Sister Song defines reproductive justice as the human right to maintain personal bodily autonomy, have children, not have children, and parent the children we have in safe and sustainable communities. Too often, the term reproductive justice is used as a euphemism for abortion, when reproductive justice is about so much more than just that. According to Sister Song, the term was first used in June 1994 when a group of Black women came together and named themselves Women of African Descent for Reproductive Justice, and RJ was born. Rooted in the internationally accepted human rights framework created by the United Nations, reproductive justice combines reproductive rights and social justice. When we talk about RJ in liberal circles, there is a temptation and a danger that that term will just be used euphemistically. RJ encompasses and goes beyond abortion, and it's both incorrect and disingenuous to talk about reproductive justice when we mean abortion. For decades, far-right politicians have capitalized on culture wars, especially when it comes to the question of access to abortion. Conservative religious groups have spent decades in an unholy alliance with political extremists, leading the charge to erode and limit human rights and basic liberties. Because religion has been used as a weapon to cause harm, we, as people of faith, have a moral obligation, indeed a moral imperative, to follow the principles of our chosen faith to correct that harm. We have an ethical mandate to join in this fight for reproductive justice. Now, it's important to acknowledge and recognize those among us who have never stepped out of this fight. Like the brave little parrot in the story for all ages, they tried to warn us of the coming fire. When we didn't listen, they tried to put out the fire by themselves, going back again and again, though they didn't have to, with their little beaks and wings full of water. They could have simply flown away and saved themselves from scorched feathers. They are the people who didn't stop, as the rest of us relaxed, certain Roe would be safe. We may have quietly thought of them as alarmist. They were overreacting. Surely, no one would take those far-right candidates so seriously. Surely the Supreme Court couldn't overturn something so basic, so obviously foundational to bodily autonomy. This is the United States of America. It is because of those activists who never gave up, who never stopped being vigilant, that we aren't worse off today. They continued to cause good trouble and are the reason that we can keep going now. When Roe versus Wade created federally legalized abortion in the United States, the stigma connected to the A word didn't go away. In some ways, it increased, becoming a political issue that one simply couldn't bring up without being rudely and inappropriately political. The stigma has continued to this day, when even saying that word can make people uncomfortable. So here's what we are going to do. We're going to say the word abortion. We're going to talk about abortion. We're going to listen when people share their abortion experiences with us. We aren't going to flinch away. We aren't going to hide from it, even if it makes us uncomfortable, even if it makes us feel incredibly cringy where we sit in our seats. One of the major contributions to the stigmatization of abortion has been the popularized myths about people's reasons for abortions, the narratives so unfairly twisted that they become outright falsehoods. The trope of the teenage girl who finds herself in trouble. The racist lie of the welfare queen who uses children to collect money without working. The idea that irresponsible women just change their minds about being pregnant willy-nilly and opt into late-term abortions. These are misogynistic lies designed to manipulate you. Abortion is a medical term, and the reasons for elective abortions cover a vast spectrum. The stories are heartbreaking. A woman who desperately wants to be a mom, only to be told by an ultrasound tech that they can't find a heartbeat. A new mother who miraculously survived postpartum psychosis only to have her birth control fail, leaving her life in danger if she continues with this new pregnancy. The mom of two who has to choose between continuing a much hoped for pregnancy and receiving chemotherapy that will save her life from the cancer that same pregnancy fueled. And on and on. Pregnancy is not a health-neutral event. Childbirth is not a health-neutral event. Pretending otherwise is utterly absurd. 1 in 4 women will have an abortion in her lifetime. You know someone who has had an abortion. If you think you don't, you may need to ask yourself why you haven't been trusted with that information. One of the roles I hold is as a volunteer clergy counselor with a hotline that people can call to talk about their reproductive choices in connection with their faith. All of the calls that I have been from women who already have children that they love or who want very much to become mothers in the future. I've spoken with many women about how the decision to end a pregnancy can often be a parenting decision. Sometimes for the children that they already have, and sometimes for the children that they hope to have one day. This is a great example of how the truth of reproductive justice goes beyond abortion and includes the critically important idea that people need to be able to parent the children that they have in safe and sustainable communities. To do that, they need access to affordable, high-quality childcare, educational opportunities, affordable, high-quality health care, and jobs that pay a living wage. Part of what reproductive justice speaks to is that abortion doesn't exist in a vacuum. There are medical reasons and inescapable societal pressures that make it untenable for someone to continue with a pregnancy. At yesterday's reproductive justice team event, we heard from 4 different clergy members about the ways that their faith intersects with their support for people navigating abortion and the work of reproductive justice as a whole. Rabbi Anna Boswell-Levy said something that stood out to me. She expressed that religion is about self-determination and finding your voice. That immediately crystallized the ways in which our 7 principles, our 8 principles, intersect with the foundations of reproductive justice. As Unitarian Universalists, we don't share a common dogma or doctrine, but we do subscribe to shared principles and commonly held values. When it comes to RJ, the intersections are most obvious with our first 2 principles. We believe that every person has inherent worth and dignity. We commit to justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Rabbi Anna also shared an anecdote that struck me. While she was getting for Rosh Hashanah, she went to see her hairdresser to get that Rosh Hashanah hair look. And her hairdresser happens to be Catholic. When her stylist asked what she would be preaching about during the High Holy Days, Rabbi Anna told her, abortion. And she was surprised by the response she got. Good. If you can't talk about it, who can? In some communities, like the rabbis, and I think like ours to some extent, talking about abortion is seen as a political act, and politics and religion should be kept separate. In other religious communities, like in many Catholic churches, abortion is seen as a moral and ethical issue which is inherently the purview of the church. I don't often say this, but this is a place where we need to take a page out of the Catholic playbook. This is a moral and ethical question, not one of politics. If we zoom out from our US-centric worldview and consider reproductive justice and gender equity on a global scale, the situation is even more dire. Iran is currently in turmoil thanks to activists who are causing what John Lewis called good trouble over the abuses of the so-called morality police, who have murdered women for not following modesty regulations strictly enough, and men for speaking out against the murders of other women. In Afghanistan, a country that has become closer to the hearts of many here, thanks to our relationship with our very special Afghan family, women and girls are taking to the streets to protest repeated bombings of schools for girls. Just 2 weeks ago, a suicide bomber at a Kabul school murdered 53 people, 46 of whom were girls who were sitting for a practice examination for a university entrance exam. Our fight for legal abortion here is connected to the fight for women's rights and gender equity around our world. Our efforts do not exist in a vacuum. There is so much wrong in the world. There is so much work to do. There are so many fights to fight. The flames can seem overwhelming, and we can feel like we are just little birds throwing drops of water on a raging forest fire. But the brave little parrot was saved by the intervention of a great shining hawk. Friends, we are that great shining hawk. Together, collectively, we can come together to put out the forest fire. And why should we? Well, we've already said it together this morning. Together, we transform lives through love, service, and our welcoming faith. We are the great shining hawk we have been waiting for. Together, in tenacity, we can win this longest march, step by step. And now, I hope you'll rise in body or spirit and join us in our closing hymn, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story from
Friends, today I was preaching to the choir. But you know when you preach to the choir? When you need the choir to sing louder. So now go forth from this holy place and sing together as loudly as possible. Amen, and may it be so.